guys, it's Dom here from Soundsplay Magazine and WARO. Just had a great chat with Rachel Jepson from Counselling for Musicians about her career, her book, plans for the future, attitudes to mental health in the music industry, and loads more. Hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll see you again really soon. Take it easy. I think the first question, really I had for you is like, because obviously we're going to the counselling side of it and how you became a counsellor, but what artists did you grow up admiring from a musical perspective? Because you've had your own band, you've been a singer for a long time, session musician, as well as being in bands. So what artists did you kind of grow up loving when you
Wow, I love
started
that
out?
question. That's great. Yeah, I'm a sort of I was born in 81, so I'm sort of when I started getting into music, it was kind of late 80s, 90s mainly. So I was sort of child of the 90s really. Um, Tricky, Tricky was a big one for me.
Yeah, the trip hop. I've got his book actually.
Yes.
Yeah, Hell's
Oh,
Around the Corner.
absolutely brilliant. Loved it. Yeah. So Tricky for me was and still is like just,
Yeah,
up there. Abs There's nobody else like him. Just
yeah,
amazing.
incredible.
So yeah, Max and Koi was just
Oh,
amazing for me.
beautiful record.
Yeah. And Martina Topley Bird, what an inspiration for a female vocalist, and
Mm,
just the whole thing about it just massively impacted me. And then as I got a little bit older, Juliana Hatfield,
mm,
really loved her. Um, yeah, like influences, I guess, for me in music. And then, I really like massively got into Jill Scott when I was about 18. And that really changed my direction for like the kind of music I wanted to do, and sort of went into the new soul kind of thing.
yeah,
But I was like massively into jazz as well around that time. That's how I got into music, was just singing in a big band, and
yeah, yeah.
just loads of Frank Sinatra and just like loads of different stuff. But yeah, Jill Scott was like this is the kind of music I want to do. Obviously
Mm,
that's changed a little bit over
mm,
time. But yeah, they're the sort of the main ones. But I was like massively into like Radiohead.
mm.
Nick Drake was a big one. I
Yeah,
think I could rank that Nick Drake in the book, because when I was feeling incredibly depressed around sort of 18, 17,
mm,
18, my boyfriend at the time, his dad was really into music and he had a great music collection. He just sort of handed me this Nick Drake album, Pink
right,
Moon. And I
yeah.
just thought the cover looked so cool and just interesting. And I just put it on and it just comforted me straight away. Just listen to it on loop over and over again, and it's so relaxing and beautiful, and his voice just pure and
Yeah, stunning,
so yeah,
stunning.
yeah.
Absolutely. There's some beautiful influences there, Rachel. Absolutely. And I think, in terms of your own performance, and your own, music, do you miss that, because obviously now we can't because of COVID and hopefully that'll come back, but do you miss performing yourself?
Yeah, I really do, Dom. Yeah, because we were in the position last January, February, where we were recording our EP,
Mm,
getting photos taken for our,
mm,
for
mm.
our promotion and things. And then obviously it happens. We had a couple of gigs where we were like, oh, we can't wait to do that, and they didn't happen. Yeah, there's nothing like standing in front of an audience and singing, and
Yeah,
having somebody next to you that you respect and admire and playing with you, and the songs that you've written together. It's just incredible. So yeah, I've really missed it actually. And it's been something obviously that you kind of take for granted, like everything else. And
mm,
now it's been whipped away.
mm.
It's just something we haven't been able to do much because he's obviously in a different house.
Yeah, yeah,
And there'll be times where he'll record something and send it to me, or I'll record something and send it to him, and we'll kind of write to it.
yeah.
But yeah, we haven't really been able to do a lot. I think there was a week maybe in July or June where we kind of saw each other a little bit, but other than that, yeah, it's not been great.
Yeah. So have you got hopes to finish your recording? Like, what are your goals? It's interesting with you, and I've got such a different angle with you, Rachel, because obviously I'm used to asking about goals for musicians. So I guess before we do the counselling side, I am going to ask you, what are your goals as a musician, I guess, going forward? What do you want to do after the pandemic?
Thanks, I love that. Yeah, because people don't really ask about that a lot, but it's good. Yeah. Um, Yeah, so I think we were in the process of writing. Basically, we wanted to write the album. So I think we had maybe 5 or 6 songs. We need maybe 4, 5 left, 5, 6 left. Um, So yeah, we were kind of in the process of writing and finding the songs that we wanted to put on the album. And then we also, throughout the lockdown, we asked a animator to do a video for us. So that was released on Halloween, actually, because
Nice.
the song's quite dark. And
Nice.
so we released it on Halloween. So we have been doing a few things. So that's been really good. We actually, I nominated it for like an anime music video award,
Cool.
and it got like the judge's choice or something. So that was great. So yeah, I think we want to just keep writing and make sure we've got those songs for the album, and then record it, and then we'll be able to perform and yeah, tour the album, as it were, just probably around Manchester, to be honest, at the
That's
moment. But he's in another band, and they've
right.
had to cancel loads of gigs that they've had all
Mm.
over Europe, really. So it's been a disappointing time. But yeah, they're the plans. Yeah, but just finishing the album, just getting
That's cool.
together, and yeah.
That's cool. So where can people? Because obviously there's a Black Lake Hotel, is it, and a few other things. Obviously you've done loads of different music stuff. So where can
Yeah.
people find you? Where do people check your music out if they're interested in you on a musical level? As well as your work in mental health.
Great, thanks. So we've got Black Lake, yeah, so it's Black Lake Hotel. So we've got the Facebook page,
Mm-hmm.
and we've also got SoundCloud. So I think all of the songs we recorded in January
Nice.
are now on SoundCloud as well. So it's just Black Lake Hotel,
Nice.
Facebook, SoundCloud. That's as far as we've got at the moment with it,
Mm-hmm.
if people want to listen. And then also the music video, obviously there'll be a link for that on Facebook, but that's also on YouTube. So yeah, it was the very talented Caleb Riley that did the video for us. He's just incredible, absolutely incredible.
I'll check that out afterwards. I'm quite excited to see it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll send you a link.
Yeah, please. That'd be awesome. So I guess, transitioning now, obviously from that period of, you're still in that period, but in terms of, writing a book, based on your, experiences as a counselor and as a musician, you've got case studies in there of musicians, you've got self-care tips, you've got, changes in the industry that you want to see. How difficult was that being, obviously your counselling, is one thing, and your years of experience working face to face with people, but writing a book and really one of the only ones I could find dealing specifically with mental health in the industry at this time. How difficult was that to pull together?
It was difficult to put together. It was quite difficult to put together. I'd say I originally got the idea from it. Well, a couple of things really. I wrote an article for Therapy Today, and the editor at the time, Catherine Jackson, was really encouraging of what I was doing, and it made me think, okay, maybe I could kind of do this on a larger scale and actually write a book and put some client transcripts in there, because that was basically what the article was. And then I kind of ran with that, and I was also at the time hosting a radio show. Musicians and industry professionals would come in and talk to me about their experiences with mental health and things like that. So those two things really inspired me to write the book. So I think I started obviously with that article and sort of expanded it, and then sort of separating it into 12, I think it is 12 or 13 different issues, which I thought were the most kind of prevalent. That's a difficult one. I've never had any negative feedback about the way that I've separated those issues, but I'm not sure everyone would necessarily agree with, the more I kind of look at it, would agree maybe with the way that I've kind of compartmentalized different things. But as much as I possibly could, that was what I thought the main issues were. And still today, like, I couldn't think of a different way of doing it, but possibly other people would sort of maybe think of something different. So yeah, it was sort of separating it into the separate issues, and then obviously researching those and other artists and music industry professionals that were quite well known as well, that would fit into those categories. So again, there's quite a lot of overlap with those, because some people would fit with kind of depression and image and how people see them, and then others would fit with addiction, and then there'll be overlaps of people that struggle massively with that image but also are addicted to things, and then the gender stuff and making it and being young. Robbie Williams kind of spans a lot of different issues alone. So it took about a year to write and get everything together. but yeah, it was a worthwhile thing. I'd like to do more. I think maybe concentrate more on the contribution side of things and people's experiences of it. But yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. Like, just because you look at the case studies, you've got like Cobain in there, you've got Boy George, you've got others, and then to look at your, you know, your perspective and sort of analysis on it was really interesting, because it gives people a different perspective, and perhaps they look at these artists in a certain way. That's something I'm really interested in future research, which I'll ask you about in a minute. But people kind of put these artists on a pedestal, so to speak, and they think a certain way, and then to have you break down these experiences and these, you know, these sort of case studies was really interesting. And that's, for me, it was easy to digest as my first like look at critical thinking around the music industry, you know, because I've got perceptions of how it is, but like to see something written down and broken down in that way was easy for me to digest personally. You know, other people have different perspectives, but you know.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, good. Yeah, it's an interesting one.
Been really useful for sure. You know, going back to that success and idea of success, this is another musician's question that I tend to ask now that I can translate. I ask a lot of musicians about success, and a lot of young people. I work with a lot of young people, young musicians who are trying to build their careers. You know, and they sort of have this perception of, oh, I want to be the next, you know, it could be Boy George, could be Cobain, could be, you know, could be Tricky, somebody like that. You know what I mean? They have these ideas in their head. And I kind of wanted to ask you, as a musician and as a counsellor, you know, how do you define success? What does it mean to you as a person? And because again, I get a lot of people have a lot of skewed perspectives on it and what it means to them.
Yeah, that is just such a great question, and it's something that I just continuously, you know, research, and I'm so interested in how people define, and in my own work with clients, you know, if they talk about their own success or even being a failure, well, you know, I love exploring with them what it is for them to be successful. Yeah, for me, it's definitely changed over the years, but I think that's a natural thing. As your needs change, as your situation changes, your circumstances. Success to me now is to make a good living out of something that you enjoy doing, and possibly on another note, being kind of well known for it. But that again becomes sort of a fairly recent thing for me. I'm not really, I wasn't really that bothered, but yeah, definitely making a living out of it. And obviously that hasn't happened with music because the counselling kind of came in and that became the priority. But yeah, definitely, yeah, absolutely. And I know that's not everybody's definition of it. I know a lot of people just want to be the next big thing, or sort of famous for what they're doing. Obviously, specifically in the music industry, you know, I would tend to find that people who've just started out in the industry would kind of be in that situation where they want to be the next big thing, or they want to be the next whatever, and they want to play, you know, mass O2 Stadium and things like that. But yeah, that definitely eased off for me. But I don't think I ever really wanted that, to be honest. When I look back, I don't think I wanted to be like the next big thing. I just really loved singing, and everyone kept telling me how amazing I was. So that kind of spurred me on. But I don't know if I actually really wanted that stuff. It's something that I've been through therapy myself to try and explore and discover. And but you know, it's always there. It's always something I'll do. But yeah, success now within mental health has definitely been making a living out of it. So therefore, you know, I'm successful in my own definition. But yeah,
it's a journey, isn't it? It's a journey and a process. My tutors are always saying to me, you never quite get there, do you? You never quite, you know, actualize those, you know, those dreams. But you know, it's being on the journey and representing and sort of reflecting on that, I guess. So.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and those reflections will that things may change, and that's natural, isn't it? I feel like once you start on the training and the therapy training and all that kind of stuff, you just carry on doing it for the rest of your life. You're always growing, always developing. I love having my mind opened about stuff.
Yeah.
I love admitting that I'm wrong about something, or that maybe I've had a different view of something that maybe was, not quite right, or I was quite narrow-minded about something. I love that I can change my definition of things, depending on my circumstances and what's happened to me. But yeah, definitely, yeah, that's really good. It's a process, and
Yeah.
it's always flowing, always fluid, and that's what I love about mental health and being in this world. It's just great.
Absolutely. Well, it definitely inspired me just talking to you so far. I've got 3 or 4 more questions now before we finish. One of the questions I like to ask musicians, kind of who've got to a certain point in their life, especially if they're vocalists, is where did you find your voice? Now I'm going to switch this round for you. And I'm going to ask you, what was the moment, if you could take me back to it, where you made the decision that you wanted to counsel for the music industry? I'm sure plenty of people asked you about, the startup and everything, and that's incredible because you've done some incredible work. But can you take me back to where you were, if you're comfortable doing that, the actual moment where you were like, right, this is what I want to do. I want to set up counselling for musicians. I want to set up a centre for counselling for musicians and mental health. I want to go down this route. Could you take me back to that moment?
That's a great one. So the exact moment was when I was rocking my then probably about 3-month-old baby in his bedroom, kind of rocking him to get him to sleep. And I always had a lot of time to think in those moments. A lot of things were born in those moments, a lot of thoughts I had. And it's something that I'd thought about whilst I was finishing up my training, because I'd researched provision for mental health in music. I can't remember what kind of inspired me to do that. I think maybe I'd been struggling a little bit with my mental health, and was starting to realize that maybe that was to do with my experiences in music. And so I started researching, and I found, obviously, Help Musicians, a few other charities, but nobody doing counselling at that time. I say at that time because obviously that's changed massively since, but at that time there was nobody else doing it. And then I kind of came back to it in that moment while I was rocking my son and thinking, okay, this is actually something I can do in a few months when I'm off maternity leave. I'm going to, really explore this. I've got to do this. So yeah, I met up with someone from Help Musicians, and sort of we shared ideas of things going forward with counselling. And I founded Counselling for Musicians a few months later and haven't really looked back. I just basically kind of pestered a lot of people for a few months and just said, I'm a counsellor, I'm a musician, I can offer this. And a few places were really good with that, like BIM, BIM, like Straight May, they were great. And then obviously other places not related to music when I'd qualified and come up maternity. And then just ran with loads of stuff. I just basically kind of, I feel like I'm good at kind of pestering, but also knowing when not to.
Yeah, that's probably.
But anyway, yes, it was that moment. That was the moment. And a lot of things in that in those times where I had a bit of space and I was kind of rocking him and patting him, and just things would come to me in those times. I kind of think about that a lot. How that must have just been, me on my own with my thoughts. And yeah, it was a peaceful time where a lot of thoughts came to me, a lot of ideas.
Absolutely. I'm going to squeeze one in because I think it's interesting that you've gone through those processes and those thoughts, because it must have been interesting when you were doing your therapy to because it's from my own experience, it's really nerve-wracking when you're doing that and when you're sort of trying something new, and for the first time you do your client hours, that's insane. That's quite frightening in a way, and certainly brings up the nerves. I wanted to ask you, was there any it's a strange question, I've never actually asked this before, so bear with me. Were there any sort of transferable skills that you found that helped you with perhaps your nerves when you went into your first counselling session, when you were the counsellor and you had a client? Any things that you learned from being on stage, being a performer? And I'm not saying that you perform when you go into the counselling room, not at all, but was there any skills that helped you prepare for that sort of role?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Yeah, I mean, as you were asking that, I was thinking straight away. I remember specifically in that first placement session, and going and sort of, you know, before they turned up and thinking, right, this is it now, this is what you've been wanting to do for ages, this is the moment, like, you're going to be great. And then I remember thinking, like, you've got up on stage in front of thousands of people, like, that is, you know, this is nothing compared to that. Now, of course, you know, you can't really compare that, and it is, you know, it is just as nerve-wracking to be with one person and trying to, you know, navigate and counsel for the first time. But yeah, I remember thinking, you know, you've kind of got up in front of loads of people when you felt really nervous, and it's sort of taken up your time for a week, and you've been thinking about it and leading up to it and wondering who's going to be there and whether it's going to go well. And this is just you with one other person doing something that you love and that you know you're going to be fine. And so I remember kind of specifically saying that to myself. And I do sometimes when I'm doing a workshop or something that I'm a bit nervous about. I'll think, you've gone into like massive places and performed in front of loads of people, like, this is nothing compared to that. I don't know whether that's necessarily true, but it's what I tell myself in those moments. And also, yeah, just knowing that, because this is something that one of my tutors actually said to me when I was on the level 3 before I did the diploma. She did this thing, and I can't remember what it was now, but anyway, the gist of it was that I was kind of a born communicator, and that, you know, with the music and the writing lyrics and wanting to communicate my own emotions and of doing everything through music and getting on stage and all that kind of stuff, that I was, you know, a communicator. And once she said, I'd never really thought about it in that way. Once she said that, it really resonated. And then obviously I kind of took that through the counselling. So yeah, that was definitely something transferable, that actually, yeah, when I'm up on stage, I am communicating with people, and I'm doing the same thing every time I get in the counselling room, and then with me as well. So yeah, definitely the nerves and the anxiety and the kind of performing side of things was definitely something that stood me in good stead, because a lot of people get really nervous about getting into a counselling room with someone in the placement. Yeah, so it was something for me. I just kept reminding myself, there's loads of people that don't have your experience of getting up in front of people. You know, you this is just you and one other person. You're going to be absolutely fine. So there definitely was that around anxiety.
No, it's I'm going to take that, because I'm going to change my it's the communication, isn't it? I like that. Like, you're communicating in the same way you communicate with an audience. Like, I've toured with a band before, and it's it was interesting actually then, because I've got this whole thing, and I'm currently talking to my supervisor about it, about like how people are going to see me differently, like, in the counselling space, because obviously now I'm on the telephone and they can't see, you know, but like when I used to get up on stage, people used to be like, oh, do you need some help, or like, are you going to be all right and stuff. And these are all things my supervisor, like, you got to watch for this when you counsel face to face. And I'm like, I'm thinking about all this, but instead of maybe thinking about it like that, maybe I could like try and think about it like I'm communicating in the same way that I would on stage. I'm like, you know, it's just about being aware of that stuff, you know, I think.
Yeah, so, exactly. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so you've been on stage as well.
Yeah. I played drums in a it's like punk, it's like hard sort of hardcore punk band, so a lot heavier stuff. But I make my own electronic music, which I don't perform, which is like directly inspired by like Tricky and Massive Attack and the trip hop movement. So there's a lot of like parallels there. Yeah, so it's interesting. It's really nice talking to you. Actually, I could talk to you, but I know you've got to. I'm trying to be mindful of time because I know you're busy. But
we've got ages.
But like we've got a couple more in anyway. I think that there's been a couple of things where you've written down about your hopes for the industry and how, you know, management and labels are now starting to take mental health more seriously. I guess from an industry perspective, before we ask about your own sort of goals, from an industry perspective, what are your hopes? Are you hoping now that management companies and labels start forking out thousands and millions of pounds to counsellors, you know, to be mindful of mental health? I mean, what are your hopes for the industry and the way it treats mental health going forward?
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I think that it would be really beneficial if that happened. Obviously, if management companies and record labels put a budget aside for mental health. I know that some are, not the major ones as far as I know, but there are some smaller labels that are still doing quite well, that are doing that, which is, I mean, absolutely phenomenal, really, that's happening. So yeah, that is an amazing start. Just that alone is incredible. I do personally believe that there does need to be, when someone goes in and signs a contract in that scenario, there does need to be right, this is what we're doing to help you with your mental health and well-being, and this is what we're putting in there. I don't see why that couldn't happen. Why can't that happen? They've got a responsibility to make sure that people are safe and feel okay and can not necessarily come to them, but that there is a provision for them to go to if they're feeling down or they need some help with something. So that would be amazing. I think just generally it's such a massive industry, isn't it? And there are people of all different levels and levels of success and all that kind of stuff. I do think, obviously my book and other people's books and all the counselling services that are out there and all the training that's now out there is great, because I'd never want to put anybody off coming into the music industry, but there does need to be a level of acceptance of these are some of the things that might happen or you might experience, and that's okay. And these are the other artists that have been through these things, or the other bands that have been through these things. You're not alone. These are some of the pitfalls. We don't want to put you off, but we just need you to know that this is something that might happen. If you do feel like this, these are the services. I just feel like that needs to happen. And I'm not saying that everybody in the music industry struggles with mental health, but obviously with the studies that have been done and all that kind of stuff, we know that this is something that is fairly common. So there needs to be awareness, and there needs to be more groups and things that are doing discussions around these things that musicians can go to and talk about how they're feeling. Ways of managing it is a massive one. But yeah, I think people just need to take more of a responsibility for their own mental health and for the mental health of their artists, bands, and not just kind of leave them to it and be like, I work with a lot of musicians and often told, which is something that I was told 20 years ago, if you don't do this, someone else will. So if you don't feel that you can get up here or whatever, then we'll just find someone else that can.
Right.
That it's still happening now. So that is really disappointing. And there definitely needs to be a bit of a switch of, right, we understand that you're struggling. These things need to be done at some point. But right now, what do you need? And if you can't do these things, maybe we can put it on hold, or maybe we could just do a little bit at a time. There's no HR department, is there?
No. Yeah.
So there's nobody to sit down with and say, my boss is doing this, my boss is saying this. I'm finding it really difficult. I need a week at home, but I can't because they won't let me take any time off. There's nobody like that. So it's very much you're lucky to be here. And if you don't want to do it, someone else is going to do it. Yeah. So yeah, that whole culture for me massively needs to change.
More mindfulness and understanding of the communities and the music industry on a wider level, I think. Yeah. I think that's it's a nice sort of segue to going forward. I think clearly there's a lot that can be done, and a lot that hopefully industry professionals, labels and artists can do. But obviously you've done a lot yourself in terms of, again, starting up a whole organization, so exploring mental health in the music industry. Obviously you've got a certificate so people can sort of become more qualified as well and understanding. I mean, from your perspective, what more do you want to do? Because it sounds like you've taken the ball and run with it, really. Again, in my research into you, and there are people that'll talk about mental health, and there are musicians that are talking about that on radio shows and doing it. But in terms of an actual organisation that's specific to mental health and music industry, you've got the ball on this one, you know, so to speak. So what are your hopes for the future and what you want to achieve? Because you've been on the radio, hosted a radio show, you've written a book, you know, you've been part of panels, you've been on stage. So what more is there for you to do?
Thanks, Dom. Yeah, that's lovely. Well, I'm doing a master's at the moment, and actually, the current assignment that I'm just starting is around what changes need to be made. So that is a really, really good thing. See, I'm doing the master's. There's a couple of projects in the pipeline, you know, that's kind of something with somebody else as well. So that's going to be interesting. And yeah, I'm obviously I'm doing the course. I did the course, developed it about almost 2 years ago now, the CPD accredited course in mental health awareness in the music industry. I want to do more like that. I've just opened the Centre for Mental Health in the music industry, and I want it to be a place where there's just loads of different workshops and courses and things like that. And yeah, just keeping on doing what I'm doing, really. That's the thing. There are other people that do what I do, but they're charities and big organisations with lots of people behind them. And I don't be like, oh, I've been doing this for ages. But I have been doing this for a bit longer than other people that don't sort of get the attention that maybe other people do, because I'm not a charity and I don't have that kind of. But I know that Tonic, you know, I'm sure you've probably heard of them. They've just released this, you know, big, massive thing that's going to really help people. But it's nice of you to say that. I'm not sure if I do have the ball anymore. I think I probably did for a couple of years. But again, it was inevitable that, you know, people would kind of rise up and do these things. So it's great. The more the merrier. There's lots of room for everybody. Nobody's really doing what I'm doing exactly with the counselling and stuff. It's more of a, you know, peer support groups, training, that kind of thing. But yeah, just more of this, more of the same, really. And I'm hoping, you know, when I've done the masters, to maybe do a PhD in something that's relevant. Just keep trying to change things and incorporate things into the industry as much as much as little old me can possibly do. But yeah, there's so many things. And like I said, I'd like to write something else, kind of based around the contributions in the client transcripts a little bit more, and sort of represent other people as well. So yeah, there's a lot of different things I can do, but just the job in itself, you know, it's massive, isn't it? It takes up a lot. And you'll know when you start doing that, you know, that in itself takes a lot of mental energy, a lot of emotion. So yeah.
Yeah. I think again, from my perspective, because I've worked with like Calm, you know, the male suicide prevention charity, and they do a bunch of stuff around the mental health and music industry. But I think from someone based in, like, I think Stockport, isn't it, and someone who's done from the sort of ground level up, you know, and I know you've been on like panels at Focus Wales and stuff like that, and I think that's like from that perspective, I think that's really, you know, there's a lot of hard work that's gone in there, because clearly while you're making money, you've not got, and I'm not crazy, because it's an incredible thing that needs to be talked about. And the more national, international charities that can do that is incredible, and it's amazing. But I think there's a lot of groundwork that you can see that you've put in, from writing the books, doing the radio show, running the centre, you know, from Stockport, and you've not got some kind of global, you know, backing in that respect. So that I think that's where my kind of question came from, is like there's wonderful things out there that have got this support and charities, and it's incredible. But equally, you know, I think from someone that's like written a book and done all this stuff from like, you know, day dot, is that I've got a lot of respect for that personally, you know.
Thank you. That means so much, Dom. Like that from you, that just means so much. I really appreciate that. It's made my day.
It's my pleasure.
But yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's it. I mean, I think, you know, that there are, and I knew when I was starting out that there were a couple. There's obviously music support and the help musicians. They were the main ones at the time. And then obviously since then, others have sort of again risen up and sort of showed the face and want to do all these things, which is great. But there does seem to be like a little bit of rivalry as well, which is really interesting for me, because I'm kind of out of it. But I also I work for a few of them as sort of affiliate counsellors and work for music support. And it's interesting for me to see sometimes one will launch something and a few weeks later the others will launch the same thing, and it's like, oh, who's gonna who's gonna do that? But yeah, like the 24-hour helpline, I mean, absolutely brilliant. But Music Support kind of launched that, and then Help Musicians launched one a year later and it got loads of attention. It's like, oh, so yeah, it's a funny one, but obviously everyone's wanting to help, everyone's wanting the same outcome, which is things for the music industry need to be better and massively improved, and how do we do that? And it, you know, it takes a bit of a time, but I've maybe got a little bit more room and a little bit more space to do things at my own pace, which is quite quickly. So I can kind of do these things and put things into place in my own way. And then possibly other people may follow suit or do something a bit different with it. But yeah, I've got no one else to kind of answer to, or you know, I don't have to kind of think about the politics of being a charity. It is something that's crossed my mind, but I don't think it's for me. So yeah. But thanks for that. Really appreciate that.
Absolutely. You know, just my perspective, but and I guess doing it on your own, you've probably got the 30-second pitch, the elevator pitch, and I'm going to give you a bit more time now. But in terms of where people can find you, obviously there's the website links that I'm going to put in. But we're in Yorkshire. There are other people, of course, that are musicians that might want to access your work. How do people do that if they're not in Stockport? Is there a way to access you? Obviously, there's the CPD stuff you do. What's the process? How can people get in touch? Is it open to anyone and everybody? Tell me, give me what's the best phrase? Yeah, give me this is the plug period of the interview.
Great. So I've got like 5 websites or something. Now I've got a couple of different websites. So I've got the Counselling for Musicians website, which obviously has my details of how to get in touch with me, and a little bit more in depth of what the course is and what I provide, and obviously the book. So that's sort of all on there, and a little bit about me as well as a musician and how I got started and that kind of thing. So yeah, you can find me on there. And then the Centre for Mental Health in the Music Industry is obviously somewhere else as well, which will show the kinds of courses and workshops and services that I provide. So I do individual counselling, but I also work with groups, bands. I've done band counselling, which is great. It's really therapeutic for everybody. I love doing that. And obviously, I do a 2-hour workshop for music students as well. Again, not to warn anybody or make them not want to come into the industry, but I do feel that musical establishments and educational establishments don't prepare students the way they probably should. What to expect from the industry, what you might find, the pitfalls, all the stuff we talked about earlier. So I do that. Obviously the 1-day CPD, which is next Saturday, the 20th, which people contact me from all over the world. I've got somebody on Saturday coming from America, just staying up all night to do it. So people do tend to find me, and I do, because obviously I'm in Manchester. There is a lot of musicians in London. I work with a lot of well-known musicians in London, and we just use Zoom and all that stuff. So that's been a really good thing about this past year, is that maybe people have sort of done that more than they would have done ordinarily, and found me because they've thought, well, everyone's at home anyway. It doesn't matter if I don't have somebody in London or Canada or Spain or wherever it is I am. I can just look around. So I've got quite a lot of clients all across the place, and people contacting me saying they want to do the course, or saying they want to do what I do and get some tips about how they do what I do. And it's absolutely wonderful. So that's the great thing about the internet, Dom, is that people can just find you. But yeah, so those 2 websites, people can find me there. And obviously I'm on Instagram as Counselling for Musicians, and on Facebook as me, Rachel Jepson, and Counselling for Musicians both. And obviously Black Lake Hotel are on there as well. So yeah, the websites are a good way to find me.
Fantastic. So if somebody wants to get in touch and do like a session with you, or do some of this work, are you operating on Zoom at the moment, or are you doing Teams, or like how's that working for you at the moment?
So I'm just getting into the process because I opened up the centre, but it's also it's a therapy centre too. So there's rooms for people to hire. So last weekend, for the first time, I was actually able to show people around and you know, for them to hire the rooms in kind of a workplace environment. So that's been really good. So I've been thinking about maybe going back to face after Easter.
Yeah.
As a few people have, and I know some therapists that have been doing this all along, because some clients really haven't been able to do online stuff, so they've had to see them face to face, which is obviously fine for them. But yeah, it's meant that I can do a lot of Zoom, a lot of telephone. Some people want Skype, occasional WhatsApp video if none of that works. So yeah, there's a lot of flexibility in what I'm doing. So yeah, anything goes really at the moment, whatever anyone's comfortable with. And that's saying I work for a university as well, who do like music courses and things. And a lot of the students, like some of them like face to face, but a lot of them like to be able to do it from their bedrooms or, you know, their parents' house, or whatever, especially in lockdown, because they haven't been able to do anything. So it's been a really positive thing in some ways, but I really miss the face to face. And I know some clients just haven't wanted to do it, so they basically haven't seen them for a year because they just thought, no, it's not for me. So yeah, anything really, anything that anybody wants at the moment.
Hopefully we'll get back to that ASAP. Absolutely. I'm quite nervous about it, but I'm also really excited about it from a trainee perspective, for sure.
It's just a different way of doing things. You'll just find it similar, but like it's just a little bit different, and it'll just be great. Yeah, it's just a different kind of, you can see people's faces and know what they're doing, what they're saying, how they're feeling, body language, all that kind of stuff. So it's a good one.
That appeals to me, for sure. Just squeezing one in then. Any message for people that are, you know, maybe they're fans of your work, or they've supported what you do, or they're like thinking about approaching you, but they're real nervous because they've never done any kind of counselling before. What kind of message do you have for people out there that are looking into you right now, which sounds a little weirder than I meant it to when I, you know, but you know what I mean? What
I know what you mean.
What message have you got for people that are looking at your work and interested?
Yeah, just, you know, I'd never pressure anybody to contact me unless they were ready. But if you are feeling, you know, a little bit anxious about counselling, it's perfectly understandable, isn't it? But you know, just trying things out is fantastic. You know, there's never any pressure to do anything. But yeah, I obviously am a very strong believer in talking, and that it helps. I think even if you come and talk to somebody about your day or what's been going on at work, I think it just could be massive for people. So there's, you know, again, sort of needs to be everyone's pace. But yeah, it undoubtedly will help, you know, to talk about things. But again, you know, there's obviously no pressure to sort of contact unless there's, you know, you really feel that it's time. That I'd love to hear from you, from anybody who wants to contact me, even if they want to contact me and, you know, talk about the fact that they want to do what I've been doing and ask for some advice, or they want counselling in the future but they're not quite sure. I'm happy to talk to anybody about anything. But yeah, just thanks for looking into me. Fantastic. I do find that people tend to sort of find me because, again, there's not a lot of people kind of doing what I'm doing officially. So
hopefully we can bring some attention to your work. And Rachel, thank you so much for your time today. I'm definitely keeping in touch. You know, there's a lot of work that can be done, a lot of cool stuff that can be done. So thank you so much for making the time for me. Like, it's been absolutely awesome talking to you. So thank you for the motivation as well. It's definitely inspired me to feel a bit better about my journey as well. So I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Sam. Thank you so much. That is amazing. And yeah, I'd love to keep in touch and chat again. And
as soon as you're doing your next day, I'm going to come on that course. So definitely, whenever it is, tell me when it is. It's just unfortunate timing this time, but I'll definitely be on it.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks so much. That was brilliant. Thank you.